I'm not ashamed to own my Lord, nor to defend his cause. Maintain the honors of his word, the glory of his cross.
Hello, I'm James Brown, and on behalf of the Eastern Church of Christ located in Toronto, Canada, I'd like to welcome you to Thursday's edition of Walking Through the Bible, a podcast where we seek to study the Bible and the Bible alone. Please stick around afterwards for information on how you can contact us. But for now, if you have your Bible with you, please turn to the book of Genesis, and we'll turn the time over to Jeremy Diesekamp for our study of the day.
Thank you, James, and welcome to all of our viewers. This is the 70th lesson in our study of Genesis. Yesterday, we covered Genesis chapter 22, verses 1 to 8, discussing how God commanded Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac. If you missed that episode and would like to watch it, you can find it and all of our other podcasts on our website at www.eastonchurch.org. You can also find them on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/EastEndChurchOfChrist under the Walking Through the Bible Genesis playlist. Today we're going to begin with Genesis 22 verse 9 and read through verse 14. The text that you'll see on the screen is from the English Standard Version, but you're welcome to follow along with any version that you have. So let's now read Genesis 22, beginning at verse 9. When they came to the place of which God had told him, Abraham built the altar there and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to slaughter his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. He said, Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called the name of that place, The Lord Will Provide. As it is said to this day, On the mount of the Lord it shall be provided. When we finished yesterday, we had Isaac questioning Abraham as to where they would get the animal to sacrifice to the Lord, to which Abraham responded that the Lord would provide. So when Abraham and Isaac came to the place that God had told them, they built the altar. Once the altar had been built, the text says that Abraham bound Isaac and placed him on the altar. Notice that the writer of this record didn't reveal to us that Isaac protested to what Abraham did. If this record was written by Isaac, as we discussed as a possibility all the way back in lesson 44, then we would expect that fact would have been recorded if indeed Isaac did fight back against his father. However, what we have here is Isaac willingly submitting to the will of his father and to the will of God. I am fairly certain that Abraham explained to Isaac what he was doing and why he was doing it, leading Isaac to submit to God. With the sacrifice ready, Abraham raised his knife to kill Isaac when the angel of the Lord told him to stop. Note that the angel of the Lord didn't tell him to stop when they got to the mountain. He didn't tell him to stop when they climbed the mountain. He didn't tell him to stop when they built the altar. And he didn't tell him to stop when Isaac was placed on the altar. It was only when Abraham raised the knife, the point in which Abraham was ready to prove his total faith in God, that the angel of the Lord said to stop. From the reading in this text, just like in Genesis 16 when the phrase angel of the Lord meant God himself, from the context it is obvious that God himself is speaking here. What God said is something that confuses many people, for God said, Now I know that you fear God. The reason that people are confused is because the Bible clearly teaches in verses like Psalms 139, 1-3, that God is all-knowing. They take this to mean that God knows every action we will take before we take it because he has preordained everything to happen. This is where you get Calvinist doctrines like unconditional election from. However, the scriptures simply don't teach that the future is already written in stone and unchangeable. If it was, then verses like Exodus 32, 9-14, where God was willing to destroy the children of Israel and make a great nation out of Moses, wouldn't make sense. In that passage, God relented from what he planned because of Moses' plea. So if the future isn't already written and God is still all-knowing, what does God mean when he says in Genesis 22:12, Now I know? It means Abraham had proven to God just how much he trusted God, that he was willing to sacrifice his only son. I truly believe God knew what the outcome would be, because God knew what kind of man Abraham was, as he told us in Genesis 18:19. He knew Abraham so well that if put in any situation, even though Abraham had the full ability to choose, God knew what the choice would be, because God knew Abraham's heart. But just because God knew didn't mean that Abraham's faith didn't need to be demonstrated, because God always demands obedience. After God had spoken, Abraham beheld a ram stuck in a thicket. The Lord had provided a substitute sacrifice for Isaac, just as Abraham said, which is why he called that place, "The Lord will provide." With that, our time is up for today. Please join us, the Lord willing, tomorrow when we will continue our study of Genesis, beginning with Genesis 22:15.
Thank you, Jeremy. And to our viewers, we also thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Should you have any questions or comments, please leave a comment below or email us at answerintheword@gmail.com. We'll try to respond to you as quickly as we can. We hope you'll join us, the Lord willing, tomorrow when we'll be continuing our study of the book of Genesis. Goodbye for now and have a great day.
I'm not ashamed to own my Lord.